Welcome back to the channel. Today, it's time to start putting this thing back together. That is right behind me. We've got the 72 Challenger engine bay in green. Over here we have the front end we're going to try and get back on. We are still waiting for some hardware from Year One, Classic, Summit, something like that, for some of the upper control arm hardware. But we're going to get a start on that. But first, you know what? It's almost December. We are in the shop. It is heated, and I want to take a moment and thank all the friends and family who have helped over the last couple of years to build the shop, help make it possible to get our floor in, the heat, the insulation, and just make this place finally, after 5 years, a usable space year-round. Could not have done it without your help. So again, thank you very much to everyone who has participated in one way or another to help make this possible. This is pretty awesome, and I'm pretty thankful to have the opportunity to do this stuff and share it with you. Now, back to the Challenger. I've got to throw it on some jack stands so I can get the K-frame under it, get that bolted back up in place. Everything is semi-tight. I've got a piece of tape on there that actually specifically says this is not tight, to make sure once we get everything in place to go ahead and tighten everything down to the proper torque spec. Back here somewhere, I've got a set of the new torsion bars to put in as well. Figure out how those go in. The old ones were, of course, now 50 years old and a little bent. So that is a plan. So let me go ahead and get this thing jacked up, and we will work on getting this at least positioned underneath and work on getting it up in place. Well, it's been a couple of days. I sound like trash. I feel like trash. Pretty much been 2 days of sneezing and sniffling, sore throat, cold. So pardon the froggy voice. We're going to try and get some of these parts on. Yesterday I did try and do some work off camera, sort of pillaging the shelving behind me, trying to lay out all of our parts, and hopefully we have everything. There are still a few parts for the front suspension, like these guys here, for the upper control arm. Waiting from Classic Industries. They are back ordered. So for now, I think I'm just going to have to use the old ones just to get us started so we can make some progress. And I did go out and buy a new bottle of good stuff for all of our hardware. Yes, bottle of Loctite. No, I'm not a savage. It's the blue stuff. But we're putting it back together, hopefully only once. So my plan is, I don't really have a plan. I'm just going to start putting parts on. We have our spindles to put on. I dug the old hardware out from the old set. The Dr. Diff kit did not include that. So we've got that. We've got our bearings. We've got our rotors, our calipers, our caliper bracket, upper control arm, our new KYB shocks. So I think I'm going to probably just let this roll for a little bit and start putting things on the car. My voice is not going to last to give you much of a detailed description other than I'm putting parts on the car. Oh yeah, we've got our new torsion bars, torsion rods too, to put in. So I've got to figure out how to properly install those from new. I've got the keys backed all the way out. I'm sure there's some process for a baseline configuration settings for those, so I'll look that up. Pretty much, I'm just going to probably move you so you can kind of see what I'm doing, because you really can't see what I'm doing other than standing in front of a camera. So let's work over here on the driver's side since I've got more space right now. Work on that. So yeah, here we go. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and chase the threads for the spindle bolts first, and I've got the old cotter pins to finish knocking out and get those ready to go. But yeah, I'll be a little slow because I have enough decongestant and Dayquil in me, I probably shouldn't even be operating a screwdriver at this point. Alrighty, let's see what we can do here. What I could do is find a little more light. But we got our new spindle for our disc brake set up from Dr. Diff. He's been sitting in a box for quite a while now. So kind of excited to start putting parts back on. All right, we've got this tucked up here. I haven't torqued it yet, but we'll get to that point. Everything on here, like I said, is loose. Go ahead and see if we can lift up this lower control arm and get a nut and bolt on here. Maybe I should grab the jack to help me, but big thing is you want to make sure we don't damage the spindle. Well, that's not being very helpful. Well, I'm going to fiddle with this. I've got to figure out how to raise this up enough. I've got to find my hardware, put in here. And I did go ahead and get a just a basic nut and bolt for right now for the shock. I think the old hardware went away, but being it's 50-some years old, we will find new stuff. That's going to be cheap in the grand scheme of things. And I'll just work on getting the rest of this side buttoned up here. And then we'll look at getting the caliper bracket, caliper, and then figure out that torsion arm, the torsion bar, get that put in. All right, we're back. It's been a few days. I feel a whole lot better. I can breathe. I can talk. And I did go ahead off camera and get the front driver corner on. We are missing a few parts that I had to order. There are a couple of bolts for the steering box to put that on. My eccentric hardware from wherever I ordered it for, I think year one, the first classic, I think. I don't know anymore. The first order was back ordered, so I canceled that, got another set, and that should be here in the next day or two. But the one thing I was missing was the rubber boot that goes over the torsion bar. Let me show you. So this fits through underneath the driver and goes through up to the K-member. And back here near the rear of it is a rubber boot and then a retainer clip that goes in the receptacle under the driver's seat to lock this thing in place. I did not have that. That was one of those things I'm going to replace. And the rubber boot, of course, I don't even think it was on when we took everything apart, however long ago that was. So I've at least got those things on order. They should be here hopefully the next day or two. But like I said, I went ahead, I got the front end all put together. Bearings are in. Everything is tightened down, cotter pinned, with the exception of our actual torsion bars up front. And yeah, everything else is pretty good. Like I said, the shock is in. I've got to get the proper shock hardware just to hold it onto the lower control arm, but that's not a big deal. I can pick that up. But I want to go ahead and move over onto the passenger side. We've got a few minutes before I've got to run. The pickup is finally done being fixed for the 6th time, I think. Hopefully that is now done because it needs to go one more trip to get our family Christmas tree and then take a long winter's nap. That problem was, I thought it was a 30-cent O-ring, but I'm told it was the oil pressure sensor. They're going to give me the broken one. My only thought is that it failed behind where the sensor was because I still had oil pressure in the car. We'll see. I'm Not terribly happy with that this summer. It seemed like one thing after another, compounding. I don't know, but it's cheaper than a car payment, so I tell myself. Anyways, let's go wander over to the passenger side. We've got all of our parts over there, and we'll start throwing some things on, and I'll work until I've got to go pick up the pickup, which is actually in about 15 minutes. So maybe I'll just put a pin in this and come back when my camera is charged up because it's about dead and I've got more time. So let me just do that and we'll see you like this. Alrighty, well, new day, I'm back, a little more time. We're gonna go ahead and start putting on the passenger side components here. I did check some of our shipping items. They are en route for our shock bolts, our eccentric alignment fittings, and a couple of other random items, but we're just gonna keep on moving ahead because that's what we've got to do. So I'm gonna grab our spindle here. This does fit in here. We've got our other spindle bolts are still over on the workbench, I believe. Yep, here we are. So these were not supplied, so I cleaned them up, sprayed them up with our Eastwood chassis black, chased the threads out, so we're all good to go. And when it's all said and done, we've got some fresh cotter pins to throw in on the backside. Pretty easy. Now again, I'm just throwing everything on here loose until it's all installed. Makes things easier. We'll keep this little booty on here until we are ready to put our bearing and stuff on. Next, I'm going to go ahead and throw our shock on. Again, just our KYB gas adjust. Nothing extremely special. Good driver quality. Got a pile of parts. Not sure if you can hear the rain outside, but I can sure hear it in here. We are approaching, well, for me it's a few days before Thanksgiving, and we're looking at a couple of inches of snow overnight. It's still 45, 48 degrees out, so whatever happens to come down tonight, it's going to be sloppy. Thankfully, I've got Bob sitting over here off camera, ready to go with our snowblower. Anyways, got our bottom mount on here. Bushing, rubber bushing goes through the hole. Top bushing, cap, and then a couple of nuts. We'll double lock those against each other when we put everything together. Hold in place. So you're in place. I've got a temporary bolt to go through here. These are a couple of the items he ordered from, I believe, Mancini. Yeah, I could have just thrown a regular old nut and bolt in here, but why? For the few dollars for the proper part. Easy decision for me to make. Now, upper control arm. Here's our old eccentrics. We're going to keep those until the new ones show up. It should be, you know, they're shipped. I'm not sure when they'll be here. Shipping said a few days ago the order was placed, but I have yet to see an actual tracking status other than waiting for shipment. Go ahead and set you in. All right, that's in there for now. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put our backing plate on for our brakes. Somewhere in our bag of parts we should have a couple of small hex screws. All right, these are in my bag of parts for the assembly of the wheel bearings. Just gonna pull a little dollop of blue stuff on here just because. Tighten you down. All right, next we have our caliper bracket. A couple of bolts. Get mounted on like this. I do like that most of the parts for this kit are pretty well bagged up in their appropriate place. It's not like a bag of Legos where you've got 35 of the same thing and you're on your own to figure it out. You know, I think I did that backwards. Yep, I did that backwards. Anybody else catch that yet? We got these to tighten up. This to tighten up. And then we're going to start building the front wheel bearing assembly, but let me go ahead and get these items tightened up. And then I think I've got to go pick up a Thanksgiving turkey, but we'll return for the wheel bearing packing and setup and just fitting the caliper on top and pads. Alrighty, it is a new day. We have retrieved our Thanksgiving turkey last night, got that prepared, ready to go. And today we're going to wrap up this front corner here. The parts we're waiting on, they're going to be here Friday and next Monday, so a couple of days from now. But we're going to at least go ahead and get this front rotor on, caliper, brakes, and then throw our front wheels on here and get it off the jack stands in the first time in a couple of years. So at least we can move it around a little better. And when our couple of parts come in, especially those rubber grommets for our torsion arms, torsion bars. When those come in, we can jack it back up, put them in, and be done with that process. But for now, let's go ahead, get our rotor over here. We've got a bag of parts. We've got our bearings. Now, these are Timken bearings, so they didn't skimp on the parts for these rotors. We've got a seal somewhere. There we go. There's a seal that gets pounded in the back of the rotor after the bearing is in, and I've got our bearing grease, so I'll go ahead and just get some gloves on, pack up our bearings, tap in that seal, and make some progress. Yeah, big drilled, slotted rotors. Not light. So we've got our, like I said, we've got our rotor here, our bearing for the backside. Like I said, it's a Timken. It comes with an extra sleeve, race, whatever you want to call it. We don't need that because they are already embedded in our rotors. Pack in our bearings with grease. You know the deal. Just pack it full. I don't actually have a bearing packer. I don't do it enough to warrant having one. But they are nice. And when we put everything together, there's a cap that goes on the front of here too, and we can slather some more grease in there just to make sure we are not light on the lube. All right, now he slides in the back of here, just like so. I'm going to move everything around a little bit just to make sure we've got lube in there, and then apply a little more just because we can. Because you know what they say about lube. Alrighty, now, should have brought a towel. Let me grab a towel, wipe my hands off. We will pound in the seal. Anyways, we've got a seal in here. It only goes in one direction. Not sure if it's a National or whose it is. I don't see any markings on it. But this sets in here. You want to press it in lightly, make sure everything gets seated in there evenly. And then there are some special, bearing press tools. I happen to have the large socket from the rear end of the pickup. And I'm just going to tap it in lightly. Make sure it's going in level. And make sure it's seated flush with the back of this rotor. Now we can go ahead and throw it on the front of the spindle and throw our front bearing in, get that packed. Let me reset the camera for you. Alrighty, now we've gotten all these things tightened up before, so that's done. I press it on. Probably got to give it a little push because there is a that rubber seal you've got to go over and get it seated. There we go. Now again, we have our front bearing, and my knees hurt. Again, another Timken bearing. I'm sure these will outlast the car. With the little amount of driving it'll probably get, weekend cruiser, going to the local Mopars in the park. Darren and his kid. We'll go ahead, just pack these things full of our bearing grease. Now I'm going to mess with myself again. Press you in. Let's see. Try and stay kind of clean, maybe. So we've got our couple of parts here. First off, we've got our washer that goes on. It is a spline, so it only goes on one certain way. We have our nut. Now these go on, there's various ways you can put them on. Usually was it 10 pounds of torque once it's on. Some people say push it in until the rotor stops and then back it off a hair. Since this is being put in for the first time, I'm going to run it in pretty firm, make sure that this bearing and the seal are seated back here. That's tight, too tight. Back it off just a hair. The other method people suggest is run it in just till it's finger tight and then just a hair past. And I'm sure once we get this thing out for a little bit, we will check these. Got a nut that goes on top of this, and then a cotter pin. bend that around, and of course I forgot my other pliers, so we'll break out the multi-tool, turn our cotter pin over. You know, some people will bend them around the sides, some people bend them over the front. That's not going anywhere. Now this cap, I'm going to pack some grease in that, because I made a mess of it. And then we'll put this on. Now if you put too much grease in here, you're going to squeeze it out from all the other stuff you've already got in here, so we don't want to do that. But I'm going to press you in. And tap it in with my now greasy hammer. And get rid of my gloves. This towel, we'll find another towel and clean up. All right, clean our grease off here. Make sure you don't have any smudges on the rotor. Let's put away our other dirty thing of grease before I make more of a mess. Now we're almost done. We've got our caliper, which is in here, with our brakes. Now it does say in the instructions, you may need to tap on the shoes a little bit, or the pads, to have them fit properly. So we will probably do that once we actually get to final assembly. Not final assembly, but final tests of brakes and test drive and everything else. But pretty much sits on top of here. We have a bag of accessories. We've got a couple of clips. Important to read the directions so you get the right directions for everything. But they mount in. Oops. Really, right in the middle, underneath. A little bit of Smurf whiz just because. All right, I'm going to find the other one, put it on. Ugh. See, we're going to guess half or 9/16. I'm going to say, yep, half. Yep, that'd be the FedEx guy. And FedEx, by the way, you have permission to leave things in the shop, not 20 feet that way outside in the cold. So maybe put things away. Anyways, that's a product for an upcoming review. That's going to be pretty cool. Anyways, the last bit we've got here is our brake line. Anything left in these instructions that's important? Hey, same stuff I printed out with torque specs. Brake line, pretty simple, fitting through here, comes up through the tab on the car, slot it in. On the back of here, you can't see it, but I'll show you when I'm done, is the screw for the caliper. I've got a couple of crush washers. Now, the kit did come with a bolt for the caliper, but I'm going to use the one that was supplied on the caliper for best results. Slide through our fitting. And pivot you around in some fashion. There we go. So I can get you back in here. Crush you down. And there we go. Now, like I said, aside from the few parts we're waiting on, our front shock bolts, we've got new bolts coming for the steering box, and then of course our torsion arm boot and clip. We're ready to go home. Not home, we're ready to go ahead and find our front gunny wheels and toss those on. All right, we've got our gunny wheels, the 45S, not a place product. Did go ahead and purchase these for the project because, well, A, the old tires are horrible, and B, with the new brake setup, would not fit the old tires. Hold on, I need something to drink. All right. Got our spacer, our washers. I've got to go find our new lug nuts. Luckily, I knew right where those were, sitting on the windowsill. There we go. I originally thought, hey, these are going to be great to go back and forth to the garage, put the engine back in, and do that stuff. But now we've got a floor, and we've got heat, and the engine's sitting behind me off camera. Actually, no, it's right back there. Now, since we're not going anywhere fast, I'm just going to put these on by hand. I don't want to ding them up with the impact and destroy them, because we're hoping to use these. I don't remember if Darren's new set of wheels came with lugs or not, but the old ones were half missing, very incorrect, and a lot of really bad threads. All right. I'm going to go put the other side on, and then we will get it off the jack stands. We've got our stuff cleaned up. We've got both of our wheels on now. I'm going to go ahead and grab our jack. And get it off of these stands. I'm going to throw a little pair of my gloves on the jack here so we don't scratch up our nice fresh paint that we'll never see. All right, get our jack stands out. All right, let's set her down for the first time in a while. Well, that's not going to work quite yet because we don't have our front torsion arms in there. I figured that'd be the case, but I figured let's just see. But that does, that's not terribly helpful for us. But if Darren wanted to have a raked look, yeah, that's maybe a little too much. Anyways, I'm going to wait for those other parts to come in for our torsion arms and our steering box and front shocks, and then we'll come back, put those last few things in, and wrap this episode up. Alrighty, we've gotten the last of our parts in. We got our eccentrics put in, our upper control arms, our steering box hardware is in and secured to the key member, our lower shock hardware has been installed. Everything is ready to go except with the torsion bars. I did go ahead and figure out the best way for me to get the driver's side bar in. It's not challenging, it's just kind of a pain in the butt. So if you've got them, remove the bump stop on your upper, by your upper control arm. That's going to help the suspension drop down enough, especially on the driver's side. Passenger side, we'll see how things pan out. I had to go ahead and put a big pipe wrench on the arm, on the key member for the torsion bar to go into, just so I get everything aligned and in. If you've got a friend, they can push it down, or if it's on a lift, you can, pull it down. But it's just me on a pair of jack stands, and that's what I had to work with. So I'm going to grab the other bar. We'll slide that through the hole in the back. It is best to go ahead and throw a little bit of grease on the ends that are going into the K-frame up here, and then also when it goes in under the cabin. Just a little bit of lube is good, right? So let's go ahead and get this bar. Well, I've gone ahead and got the bar here. We have our little boot. That's got to slip over the bar once it goes through the hole underneath here. Now, you're not really going to be able to see a ton, so I'm going to go ahead and just slide it through under here, get it started. I did go ahead and put just a tiny little slit in the end of here to help it go over this this end, and it went on a whole lot easier. I saw a lot of folks online struggling with trying to get this boot over and onto the bar. So go ahead and slip that over. Yeah, it's not the easiest. Now with our setup here, I've got to put just about a 1/16 of a turn on this lower arm that the torsion bar goes into. That's why I had my giant crescent wrench. We've got all the giant pipe wrench, sorry. We've got the key is all the way backed out, so we don't have any pressure on it right now. But just enough, I gotta get enough leverage so I can twist it, like I said, 1/16 of a turn, and get this torsion bar in there. And hopefully I've got enough room over here. We should be careful we're not marring up our paint. keep hearing some weird noise. I think it's just wind. Okay, just a bit, we're in. The noise was definitely the insulation on my stable doors falling down. I've got some 6-inch wide vapor barrier tape for siding and plastic wrap on your sheeting on your house, and it's falling down along with the 6-inch batting, insulation batting I've got. So that's a project for another day. Anyways, I got it in. Let me finish tapping this in, and let me bring you down there real quick so you can see what I'm going to do. So here's the driver's side. You can see that torsion bar goes in there. And on the passenger side, you can see it is set out about inch and a quarter. And that's got to get tapped in to match the driver's side. And then you go under here, which is going to be very dim. You go under here, and the end of that needs to get tapped in about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and then there's a C-clip that goes in there. There's a little recessed ring where you put that C-clip in there, and everything gets locked into place. So let me go ahead and tap this in, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. All right, we've got that torsion bar tapped in, and you can see, not sure if you can see it, but about 3/8 of an inch inside this hole is a recess for this ring to slide into. So now I've got to get that in place. Oh, in a most uncomfortable position. Goal is to tap it in so it once you compress it, it sits in there and then expands once it gets in this little ridge. Tough to see from my angle for sure. But at least the parts are in here, and when it gets in alignment, we can make sure that this is reviewed and everything is in where it should be. Yep, looks like we're about where we should be. All right, kind of feel it. You can see it sitting in that ridge. There we go. All right, we got that stuff on. That is the last of the parts. There are still a few things I have left to tighten up. The steering arm, the pin on the steering box, and I think 1 or 2 of the inner tie rod ends. I don't have any cotter pins on those yet, so those are indication to me they haven't been fully taken care of. Let's go ahead and take this thing off the jack stands and get it down on all 4 wheels. Now that we have the torsion bars in, that should be a lot easier. See, I've got a glove on my jack top just to help protect the new paint. One jack stand out. Two jack stands out, and a few tools. All right, let's go ahead and lower it down. Excellent. All right, we are on all 4 wheels. It's the first time in a while. Now I've got definitely needs an alignment. Definitely needs an alignment. but it is on all four wheels. It hasn't been on that in a couple of years. So everything up front here should be pretty well buttoned up, with the exception of, like I said, the front end alignment with all of our new parts on here. And the next big thing up front is going to be dropping in that giant 440 sitting over here. So that's going to be, there it is. That's going to be the next thing up here. I have on the rest of the car, you can see, is still rather gray in color. So my next thing there is I'm going to be working on finishing getting that blocked out. And then I will probably roll it in the booth and get the trunk and the cabin painted. And once that is done, hopefully be able to get the engine in. Maybe if I have time before the engine goes in, I can get the rest of the outside painted. I'm not going to do the doors yet. Those still need some body work done. But get it jammed, get the rest of the green on. And there's not a whole lot to paint because the top of this is all going to be the vinyl top. I'm going to paint it just the same. But we've got our new rear quarter over there, our patched rear quarter over here, our new sail panel, and then the roof. So the majority of the rest of the paint's going to be in the cabin, and then our hood, our trunk, and our front fenders. And we've got a handful of little parts, especially those new parts for the vintage air setup to paint, just a bunch of little stuff. So I have a feeling there'll be a handful of weekends of the booth going up and down to get things painted. So for now, this is a great step forward and a turning point. So until the next video, hope you've liked this one. Hit that subscribe button below. We're gaining subscribers. We're gonna hopefully kick off 2026 on a high note and just keep going. Like I said, we're down here in the shop. It is insulated, it is warm, and we can work year around now. So that is awesome. I'd love to get the 52 out, but it's behind the RV, it's behind the Mustang, and it's buried for the moment. So that's not gonna come out. So we can focus on this, and of course all of my other broken crap over there. So until the next video, have fun doing what you're doing, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. And Shopcat says bye-bye too.